Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Hard Claim with Aviva Sam. I'm Sam, and this is a show where we talk to people who play Blood on the Clocktower and get their player perspective of the game. And joining us for this week's episode is Noor. Thank you for joining.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Sam.
Yeah. We got a script here loaded up for you. You requested the name escapes me, Hide and Seek, classic script. You've drawn the Huntsman token, which means somewhere out there you know that there's a damsel.
I do.
Unless you're the drunk. That's always a possibility.
Oh, yeah.
So with that said, if you and I were chatting on day one, what would you claim?
Oh, definitely not Huntsman, Sam. I do like hard claiming, just not my role. I would likely try to hard claim a demon bluff. I picked this script because I love damsel scripts. I've experienced a couple of damsel guesses, the first of which was on your stream. And they do feel bad. However, I think of I damsel scripts feel a lot more collaborative in that it is town's collective responsibility to cover for the damsel. And it's a excuse for me to go crazy and just excessively lie, which I greatly enjoy. And if I claim a demon buff, all the better.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I'm a big defender of Huntsman. Not that I think it's necessarily a great character, but I always described it as a character who knows the damsels in play, and that's quite important. More than people think. People just think of it as, oh, it's a character that's probably not going to be able to pick a damsel, and then therefore it's useless. Or I guess also some STs do use it to add in an extra damsel. I don't use it for that, unless maybe it's a heretic script. That can make a little bit more sense. But yeah, anyway, I like Huntsman on scripts. I think damsel is a lot harder when there is no Huntsman on the script, which can be fine. What's the Leviathan script is like that. Harold Holt's Revenge. It's a good example of a damsel that's much harsher, especially since it's probably not going to be dead by the end of the game.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Huntsman's a good character to try to provide cover for a damsel. And I talking about the damsel, I guess, for real quick. You need damsels to lose sometimes, I guess, but like most alternate win conditions in the game, it's really more the threat of the loss, because most games don't end in a damsel, I guess. It results in a damsel who's providing misinformation and causing confusion, and then usually eventually gets out, and then and then it does its job. So that's my thoughts on that,
Yeah.
if you wanted to know.
Oh yeah. I just story told a game this morning where it was an Al Hadikia solo script, and the evil team pinpointed who the damsel might be on day one because the damsel was claiming a demon bluff. And the demon also killed the king, and there was a choir boy in play. So day three started. The choir boy revealed the name of the demon, and one of the minions promptly went and correctly guessed the damsel. It
Yeah.
was a fun game.
I have a feeling that the base, or not the base script, but the eventual expansion script for a lot of these characters might be in that realm of lots of like the game just is on a like the edge of just always close to ending. It's good stuff though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Blood on the Clocktower. How did you discover the game, and about how long ago was that?
I started playing about a year ago. My younger brother and my only brother recommended this game to me. We both play a lot of board games. I also play a lot of video games and love social deception in general. It ties into what I do for work. And my brother lives like all the way across the world, and I was visiting him one winter, and he just raved about this game and told me it was his favorite game ever, but just couldn't get the numbers to play it. But told me that since I live in Oregon by Portland, I'd probably find a group. So when I went back home, I looked up Portland Blood on the Clock Tower and found a Facebook group, but I'm not really on Facebook, so I left it aside and did some more Googling and found a website called boardgameschedule.com and randomly joined a game. And the storyteller was Jen. And a lot of the players were players who play on your Friday stream, like Lynn and Robert. And that was my first game of Blood on the Clocktower. I drew Imp, as is typical. It's
Of
the new
course.
player curse. I incorrectly bluffed Ravenkeeper, thinking that I would gain information if I was executed during the day. Um, Naomi was also in that game, and it was their first game as well. And I think they drew a minion or Scarlet Woman, and I think there were like two or three star passes that game, and Evil won, but not because of what I did. Our final demon carried. I wish I could remember who it was, but they were a rock star.
It still
And then I
counts.
found my local group.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, board game schedule has a interesting history. It's so we used to play. Some of us used to play Werewolf online through Zoom, and somebody in the group made BoardGameSchedule.com to help us schedule those games. We were doing Facebook. It was. We would do like, you just kind of take it to whoever signs up in order, but then Facebook started not having comments in order, so you had to put like a number in front of your sign up. But
Huh.
then if two people posted at once, you might have like two people marked as number five, and it got very confusing. So board game schedule
Interesting.
is good for that. And then a lot of us started playing Blood on the Clocktower, and then understandably, we were pretty much the only people using that website. So, and does websites, for anybody who doesn't know, are not free. They do cost money to host and do things with. So he did announce he's going to shut it down. I moved my operations, if you want to call it that, to Discord. Others have their own spaces. So yeah, that was the history of board game schedule. And yeah, we apparently we got a few people that way, and that worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what about the game hooked you to it?
So many things. The idea of it was very intimidating to me at first. Um, I I think of myself as an introverted, as an extroverted introvert.
I
I
feel
am
that. Yeah.
very shy. I also have quite a bit of social anxiety and a lot of performance anxiety. When I was younger, I used to take propranolol whenever I had to like give lectures or perform on stage or do anything like that. And I've stopped since then, and I'm just doing a lot of exposure therapy. So I wanted to do what drew me to this game is how anxious it made me feel. It was absolutely terrifying to me. Just the idea of sitting in a room, trying to come up with accusations and bluff and lie because I'm a terrible liar. When I was younger, back in college, I tried to do a similar thing where I joined debate club to try and get over my anxiety. And my first debate was terrible. And I gave it a few more shots, and then I switched to adjudication, and I was a much better judge than a debater. But I wanted to give it another chance, and it worked out, and I'm a lot more comfortable doing it now. I still get nervous, but that was a big draw for me. Just becoming a lot less anxious and comfortable being myself, creating new friendships outside of my kind of like schooling and work setting. I spent the majority of my adult life in school and postgraduate school, and never really did things outside of that with people outside of those groups. And then I think more importantly, it became a way for me to feel very close to my brother. And now that I'm on stream, I can't watch myself. I cringe when I watch myself. So if I ever watch videos back, I skip parts that feature me. But I do send videos to my brother, and he's my biggest cheerleader. And the last time I visited him, he organized this big get together with his friends and had me storytell and introduce like a lot of newer players to Blood on the Clocktower, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And this game, for whatever reasons, I'm sure there's people who have given this thought, do appeal to a lot of people that you might otherwise not expect to. Lots of neurodivergent people in the space, and people who are introverted. Somewhat. I feel like I'm also sort of a introverted introverted. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. I can't even say
Yeah.
the phrase, but I'm only able to do these interviews because I just love the game so much. I'm not much of a camera. I never consider myself much of a camera person, but I don't know. I just feel comfortable in this space, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like for me, it feels like I've been able to use this in other aspects of my like professional career. I don't have like a very intense professional career, but I am at a point now where I'm like sometimes running meetings or having to deal with clients who are paying us for work, and yeah, I don't know. Some of it just transfers over in ways I wouldn't have expected.
Same. I've noticed that I'm a lot better at being spontaneous and going with the flow, and a lot more playful too. And I'm trying to inject that into my day-to-day life. Clock Tower is a big part of how I cope with work burnout. And I'm just trying to merge those two sides of my life together.
Yeah. And so your first games were online, and then you found I assume an in-person group. You were saying, what was that transition like, playing online to going to in person?
Not very different, and the time that lapsed between online to in person wasn't very long. I think my first online game was with Jen and a lot of people that play with you on the 19th of February. Don't ask me why I remember random dates, I just do. And then I found Rose City Clock Tower, which is my local group, and played a couple of online games with them, but they host in-person Clock Tower games twice a month. So I think my first in-person game might have been in March. Um, Quite a different experience. I think I prefer in-person Clock Tower over online, but I love playing both, and online is obviously more accessible. So I'm fortunate in that I get to play both online and in person. I know a lot of people don't have that as an option.
Yeah, I run my in-person group once a month, and I really wish I could do. And maybe eventually we'll get to the point of doing two a month. Yeah, I always say that playing this online, running it online's made it easily my favorite game of all time, and then in person's even better. I do love that there's a lot of pros and cons to both in person and online. Like you said, ease of access online is just amazing. You play with people all around the world. You can load up a script, at the drop of a hat. At the end of the day, the game was built for in-person play, so it does just generally work a little better. But it works really well online. So if it didn't, I would not be doing this right now. So,
Yeah.
do you have any experience with other social deception games? I think you mentioned that you're a fan of the genre.
Yeah, I have a lot of board games. I just don't play them as much anymore. Avalon, Feed the Kraken. I've played Werewolf. I used to play a bit of Town of Salem, but can't go back to it now. Are kind of big ones that come to mind. Deception Hong Kong,
I love
which
that
I
one.
hope I'll try to play with some friends at the con. Are just a few that come to mind.
Yeah, and that's Final Three Con, which me and Nina will also be at. That con probably will have come and gone by the time this airs, but hopefully we'll have met and enjoyed some time with everybody. I loved meeting people at the con when I got to go 2 years ago, but
Yeah.
it was great.
My my first con was the Vegas con, late last year, and it was also my first gaming con. It was a lot of fun.
I my first board game convention was a local con in 2019, and then I went to Gen Con after that, and then because that was like when I was first getting into board games, really. And of course, that was an interesting time because obviously the next year cons weren't really a thing for a while. So it's like you get this taste, and then yeah, the board game cons in general are really fun. Clocktower cons even better, but arguably
Yeah.
when I go to my local con now, which I have to miss this year because of it's the same weekend as Final Three Con. Very sad about it. All I do now is
Mhm.
Clocktower. Like that is literally my existence. I help run it, I help organize it, uh, and that is board games. But I do like board games in general too, and love the just the playful atmosphere. Everybody's there to have fun. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so when you sit down to play a game at Clock Tower, you're drawing out your token. Do you hope that's a blue or red token?
Depends on what I'm in the mood for, and the script. Sometimes when I've had a lot of games where I've been evil, I'm just in the mood for a blue token. If I'm not in the mood to solve and I just want to sow some chaos, I probably want to draw a minion token. Uh, and sometimes when like it's been a while, I want to be the demon. Though, given how often I draw demon tokens, I don't think I've ever had that thought. Yeah, I'm unlucky. I draw demon tokens a lot. I think I've drawn demon tokens more than I've have minion tokens.
That's interesting. I
Yeah.
um I played on the TPI stream yesterday as of this recording. Um, Drama token. It's an Odashi token. I'm like, "Ah, okay, here we go. I told chat because I was streaming at the time from a player perspective, and I told chat I do not have a good track record as a demon on the stream. um, I, but thankfully, I made it past not just day one or two, but did make it to the final three. Did lose, but
That's a win.
yeah, I'm happy enough to get that far because at that point,
Right.
it's you've done everything you can. You can't always pull it off. Sometimes you can. Um, it's all good. And we talked before this where our stream that we did on Hard Claim on Friday, Nina was evil in all four all four games, and including being the demon on the final game in Trouble Brewing. I helped her out the best I could though, because in this is I guess I would call this storytelling advice, but I went to Nina. I had to watch one in the game, trying to figure out what to show. I was like, well, we could show some misinformation off the spy. We could show a demon bluff, but I don't know if Nina would like necessarily pick any
Mm.
specific ones. So I was like, I'm just going to go to Nina. I'm going to ask her what she's bluffing. It's like, hey, just so out of curiosity, what do you plan on bluffing? So she kind of ended up landing on investigator, and I wouldn't normally show a washerwoman investigator, but I was like, what the hell. I told the washerwoman that the spy or Nina the imp was the investigator, and she was confirmed for a while. She was less confirmed later, but it was enough to pull out the win. So I got her a win from that at least.
Nice.
Um, how do you deal with that when you're on like a big long, like maybe like an evil streak, or maybe just a big losing streak? I don't know if you really think much about that or not, or
I used to care. And then a shift happened. I don't know when that happened. So I come from a very competitive background. I used to be like just competitive schooling, competitive at gaming. And I think initially when I started playing this game, I did care about winning. Not excessively, just because of the interpersonal component of the game. But I think, and I used to count like my winning streaks and my losing streaks, and I used to keep track of my stats and my win rate. And then I stopped caring and started focusing on creating and enjoying memorable moments in the game and focusing on areas where I can improve as a player. And once that shift happened, I just started having a lot more fun. Sometimes when I do get burnt out, maybe I've lost a lot, or maybe I've had a lot of games where people tunnel on me being evil and I have to solve, but Noor's evil. I decompress by storytelling or taking a bit of a clock tower break and not playing for a few days. And I already have that built in. I play a lot, but I have a day of the week where I just don't play clock tower. So yeah, I don't really care about winning or losing as much anymore, especially now that I have a lot of friends in the community and I just enjoy playing with them and having fun with them.
Yeah, I find for me there's been multiple points, and again, maybe not even a specific point, but like just where something like clicks, and being a demon who maybe like dies on day one, you know, initially you might feel, at least on my end, you might feel like, oh well, okay, we've just kind of like wasted a game, but in reality, that's people don't look like people aren't looking at you and being like, oh, you lost the game for us. People are thinking about it. Oh, okay, well that was a game. It was hopefully fun. All right, now it's the next one, and then you just kind of move on, and it's like no big deal. Sometimes those day one losses are the funniest.
Yeah.
We had a game the other day where the Slayer shot the demon day one because the Slayer was on the block, and the demon was a player who, uh, for whatever his reasons, was double claiming Slayer. But the Slayer was like, "This is a player who, as a demon, would double claim a Slayer," and shot him, and it was a fun moment.
Yeah. Sometimes I create mini objectives for myself within the game. And I try to like achieve those tied to whatever character I draw. For example, with this huntsman token, I will probably hard claim Preacher and try to pick minions. And therefore, the minions will probably guess that I'm not the Preacher, because my goal is to get Damsel guessed, which I'm really good at.
Yeah, great.
Um, I think the last time I drew Huntsman, it was on a damsel script, and I was damsel guessed 5 times. Uh, the fourth damsel guest was by the demon, and then the fifth one was by an actual minion. So I did my job and covered for the damsel. Like, that is my job and goal for this game, rather than just winning or finding the demon.
For whatever reason, it does remind me of a side story. I've probably told it on here a few times, but I was on Alejo stream because them and Navian had just featured Extension Cord. So we're playing Extension Cord. I draw the Boom Dandy token. And it's like 9 players, so it's kind of a smaller, cozy game. I was like, oh, cool, I'm the Boom Dandy. This is one of the characters I said I wanted to be if I drew a red token on the script. Day one, Demon gets nominated. He decides to claim minion and choose, randomly guess the player as a damsel. So he's unanimously on the block. So there is a damsel in play. I do know this. So they're kind of, and I'm counting from 10. I'm like, okay, I got to find out who this damsel is and hope that it's right. And across the grim, I hear, I'm thinking about choosing on like player like 5 or whatever, and like player 2 goes, it's like, well, just in case this isn't a play, so and so, pick me. So I claim minion and choose so and so as damsel. The game is over and we won. They did not expect that player to actually have been the demon that they had on the block. They thought a minion guess was actually used up.
Oh
It was fantastic.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, that is too good.
All right. Well, what kind of characters do you like to play in this game? We've kind of already talked a little bit about it, but do you like info gathering characters? Do you prefer more like passive characters, et cetera, et cetera?
I like info gathering characters. I like info gathering. I like demon banes. Um, when it comes to townsfolk, for outsiders, I I unironically love the butler. I know it's a meme within the community, but I do like the butler. I have ADHD, and the butler is a character that helps me slow down and just focus on voting and see what who people nominate and vote on. Because I love focusing on that. I love looking at patterns and behaviors and inconsistencies in those patterns and behaviors. Um, I really enjoy doing that. I know it doesn't sound exciting, but it's a lot of fun for me. Um, so that is why I love the butler. It is a fun, harmless outsider.
Yeah, I
Um,
yeah, I don't ever want to convince people to like it if they don't like it, but I really don't understand the hate for it. I really don't.
Me
I don't
neither.
I don't love it, but I definitely don't hate it.
Just a harmless butler
Yeah,
serving
yeah,
you food. I even like playing the butler as a hidden butler where I don't even come out as the butler.
yeah.
I just randomly pick someone and chill, and I have a really chill game.
If you watch
I like
Ben Burns
butler.
plays, if he draws a Butler token, he's like, "Oh, great, this is going to be a nice chill game." Like it's
Yeah,
like so low responsibility. It still does something, but yeah.
yeah. I still try to solve, but
Hmm.
it's a lot less of a responsibility
Yeah, we've had
for me.
some one of the person we've interviewed. I think about sometimes when with these questions come up is Blake, and he is somebody who specifically doesn't want an information character because he wants to be free to just sit and watch everybody. If he has to deal with information, that's that's distracting him. So I love seeing those kind of like differences of what people enjoy.
Yeah.
I've always said
Uh,
empath is kind of like my ideal character because you get information, you can act on it, but it's not overwhelming. Like it's very straightforward. Um, yeah, nice chill character. Empath is a good like medium for me.
Not for me.
Oh
In my local group, if I claim empath, they kill me like right
no,
away.
something empaths aren't real.
Yeah, pretty much. They think it's my go-to bluff as a demon. It's not my fault. It's given to me as a bluff every single time I'm the demon.
I've ran games with several games with Manny as a demon, and for whatever reason, those are the games where I just happened to like planned on putting Savant as a bluff, and he loves bluffing Savant. So I got to the point where I'm like, if he's a demon, I'm trying not to put Savant as a bluff because it just like happens so often.
Yeah.
Speaking of bluffs, what kind of characters do you like to bluff, whether you're good or evil? I don't know if you have any like kind of specifics or not.
Yeah, it depends on my role. I it depends on my role and what's on the script. So, with Huntsman, I'd given the example of bluffing Preacher. It also depends on the group that I'm playing with. Um, Sometimes I hard claim the truth because like people just expect me to lie. Um, so I try to violate their expectations by doing something unexpected or giving them an unexpected role, whether it be a true role or a false role. I love bluffing outsiders, even if I am an outsider. I think by default, that's probably my go-to bluff. And I'm probably going to have to change that once this video comes out and if it gets any views.
Mhm.
So I do like doing that.
That's a real goal
Um,
behind this show is to get everybody's strategies and
yeah,
make them play a little worse.
yeah. I think I do bluff Butler a lot. Butler, Klutz, Moonchild, uh, those are some of my favorite outsiders. I bluff start knowing roles a lot as well. Um, yeah, I don't bluff. I bluff ongoing info roles at times, even when I am ongoing info, but it's script and group dependent.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of groups have different metas.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, a lot of groups, especially if they're kind of younger in their career, so to speak, um, you know, being a you start knowing role means you're going to get executed early. eventually people realize it's a little silly, and there's not much point in executing somebody that you already think is good. Uh, but then, of course, that ends up opening the door for, oh, okay, now we can bluff. You start knowing roles and get away with it, and it kind of becomes this revolving meta, which is one of my favorite things about Clocktower is that you know, one of the stories I like to tell is, evil players will often get to the point of they'll try to nominate their own evil player, other evil players, especially if people think that they are evil. Be like, oh well, he nominated them, so they must be good. But Jeremy got to the point of doing that where he nominated his demon, and everybody's like, I think this is a demon he nominated. Uh, I think, like I said, it's just like a whole like circle. Um, yeah, and it's one of the fun part of the
I
games.
Yeah, so I actually do that. I try to set things up in advance when I'm good, um, in preparation for games when I'm evil. Um, like you brought up the example of dead voting on like I've had games where people thought I was evil. Oh, where am I going with this? I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, death
I've
voting is definitely a strategy that evil can employ a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
This is where I was going. In the past, I used to dead vote a lot on my demon, as a minion, and then people picked up on that. So I stopped doing it and started dead voting on good players, and then people would assume, oh, that's Noor's demon, let's kill him, and then
Yeah.
we'd make it. And then I would also start practicing how I would bluff a role as an evil player by playing that role as a good player. An example that comes to mind is grandmother. Um, I've had a few games where when I drew grandmother, I just would not interact with my grandchild and maybe approach them a day or two late and not claim to be their grandmother, but somewhat insinuate that I knew their role. Um, and I think a week or two after that, I drew Shabalov and I went with a grandmother bluff. And day two, I approached someone that I suspected was an innkeeper and insinuated that I knew that they were the innkeeper, and we won. Uh, the innkeeper stayed alive till final three because why would I kill my grandchild?
I
And
love
I
that.
just navigated their protections.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, for some people that can be controversial to play in a way as good that there's a name for it. I can't remember what it is, but to like, uh, to prepare for when you're evil so you can play the same way. But there are actual advantages. Like, I see so many times of, it's normal for a grandmother to connect with their grandchild as soon as possible. It makes sense. But what often ends up happening is that information spreads pretty easily, either through hints that they're accidentally giving, or the simplest is like, oh well, let's just roll swap, and you'll say your grandmother, and you're confirming me. And after a while, it's just like kind of obvious that
I can,
yeah,
yeah, I can add that while I'm doing that, I'm not, how do I put this? I'm
J-
still playing for good, but
yeah, yeah.
I'm
You're
I'm
not just throwing
practicing,
chaos for the
yeah,
sake of it.
I'm
Yeah,
practicing a different play style with with that character, that I'm thinking of employing later as an evil player,
yeah,
potentially.
yeah. And I think that makes sense. And I often think about what Milk says. Just try things, and sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it won't.
Yep.
Grandmother not going to their grandchild right away, that is totally valid. Like I said, it kind of hides that interaction for a while, and then if you both die in the night, well, now that might be a good time to be like, especially in BMR, because there's only the Zombol really tends to want to die at night, or could potentially hide your death at night. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of strategy to be there, and that's why I just like always hard claiming, and it may not always be an accurate hard claim, but if you hard claim, sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's the truth, and sometimes you a day or so later you go, okay, I was lying. Actually, I'm this. Well, now you do that as evil, and it sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it won't. Yeah,
Yeah. I've been doing a similar thing with Washerwoman where I only approach one of my pings but don't reveal what I saw and see what information I get from them. Because it's been a few times where I've pinged off a spy, and then in a couple of days I share my information. And if both of my pings are not claiming what I saw, I probably pinged off a spy, I'm the drunk, and you get what I'm saying. There's a lot of explanations to explain what's going on with my info
Yeah.
to explore.
So thinking about the base scripts, of course, Trouble Brewing, Bad Moon Rising, Sex and Violets. How would you rank those three, or how do you feel about each one?
Uh, Trouble Brewing is number one for me. Uh, BMR would be number two, though I just need to announce my dislike for Zomboul. And Sex and Violets would be number three.
I agree with Zumble. So why Trouble Brewing number one?
It's the most balanced and just constantly remains interesting. I can never get tired of Trouble Brewing. It's a great palate cleanser after playing some, draining custom scripts.
Yeah.
You can play it really quickly if you want to run a game of Speed TV. It's just really fun. It has one of my favorite roles, the mayor, as well. Love me a mayor and a mayor win.
Yeah. I almost hesitate to ask that question just because I feel like Trouble Brewing as number one is very common, and the answers are usually pretty much the same, which I think says something for it. But while we're on the topic of Mayor, what do you like about it so much?
Um, I I love the mayor. I like using the mayor to do a few things. One, to try and deflect kills off of more important roles in town, like a fortune teller or empath. Hopefully, the mayor bounce goes to a like a top four role or an outsider. Um, and it's a role where I can be a little more open with other players, hopefully gain their trust. And mayor wins feel fantastic when players try to go for them, even if I suspect they're evil. If they're newer players, sometimes I just go along with it because if there's a chance that they're the mayor, it's just gonna feel great if they get it. And I remember how fantastic my first mayor win felt, and I want other people to experience that. Just the entire town celebrates. It's such a great feeling.
I've been the demon on the losing end of a mayor in a at a convention game, but everybody was excited, and kind of going back to the whole winning versus losing thing. I don't mind the lose is evil because every good win needs an evil team, and vice versa. So yeah, it's all part of the game. And losing
Yeah.
to a mayor was fun. Everybody enjoyed it. So I can't complain. So thinking about BMR and S&V, that's usually where the opinions get really interesting because they always vary quite so much. So why BMR over S&V?
BMR is a more satisfying puzzle for me. I enjoy the death, like the potential for accelerated deaths. It's also why I dislike Zomboul. Games can really drag with Zomboul, especially if town loses roles like gossip very early on,
Yeah.
uh, which have happened. I'm also traumatized by Zomboul. I've had 11, 12-day Zomboul games that I never want to experience again.
This is why
Um,
I do preach for storytellers to be running their games faster, especially BMR. If you're on day 7 of BMR game, you don't need a 5-minute day. Uh, Give them 30, 60 seconds to talk and then open up nominations. There's no point in running a long day. You could do it.
yeah, yeah. But I like the demons on the script. I like how I just like solving the puzzle based on who died when, and the limited amount of information on the script. And I like how it's more of a social script.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think we focus a lot on that. My group is a lot more mechanical. And I've been exploring social plays a lot more, which is also why I enjoy focusing on nominations, voting, uh, changes in behaviors, etc. And I'm the type of player which doesn't work with how quickly the games run. I try to take time to talk to people, and explore why they did what they did,
Hmm.
rather than just quickly assume, oh, X is evil. They did this. Sometimes that makes me evil's biggest ally because I'm willing to overlook various plays and just spend time and talk to the person and try to understand where they're coming from. But other times the player's just good. And I would rather, like, my default is to trust rather than distrust. And 60% of the time, that works out. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, BMR is my number three, almost for the exact same reason, or I guess opposite reason, because the puzzle is not my favorite thing to do. I still enjoy BMR, but something happens. There's like five things to explain it. Something else happens. There's five other things to explain it. Of course, eventually you do get to a point where you can start kind of merging and merging those possibilities and eliminating some. But um, yeah, for me, it's just it's a bit. It's a lot. Um, but
I get
I
it.
also wondered for you how much of a difference you see between online play versus in person play. Because I find, especially with BMR and SMV, they stand out a lot more.
Um, I think, hmm.
Mostly with SMV, but yeah.
Uh, I'd actually be curious to hear your thoughts. My guess is, if I had to guess, my guess is goods win rate is a lot higher online with SNV
Yeah.
than in person.
Yeah.
That it's easier to parse through all the information. Savants can just write down all their info. It's easier to track everything. Whereas I would guess it's more balanced in person than it is online.
Yeah, yeah, and that's pretty much it. I just didn't know if that was something you'd notice yourself or not. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and online, even outside of SMV, there's just yeah, it's just normal to take notes and you just have all that information accessible. You could even like share it in a chat usually, whether it's on the app or on Discord. Um, Savant, great example. I do know some people who write down stuff on uh, in person, and I'm always fine with that. I never tell anybody they can't. I see it as an accessibility step. Some people just need to do that. Some people don't need to do that, but they do it anyway. It's not my job to poke and distinguish what that difference is. I did have to ask, not have to, I did decide to ask players to stop. So votes ran, and somebody goes, okay, do you mind to keep your hands up? And they're writing down every single person. I was like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that because it's taking up time and it's it makes it a little harder to for bluff space for evil, especially in S&V. A lot of people ask, "Oh, can we get a vote history for players?" And TPI always says no.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. Just so many people online are just so used to, especially if they come from the older unofficial app. That by default had a vote history. Yeah,
Oh,
that's bluffing space. That evil. If 6 out of 12 people voted yesterday, and somebody goes, "Oh, well, who voted 2 days ago?" And maybe your demon who did vote is like, "No, I didn't vote." And then who's going to say otherwise? Like
yeah.
somebody might remember that, but somebody can easily. I've written down stuff before in an online game, and the next day realized I got it wrong, and that was a town crier for nominations, which is easier than. So if you're not writing that down, anyway, that's a whole spiel that I have about that.
Yeah.
Mostly, I just didn't. I was curious if you had noticed that yourself. If there's a
Yeah.
kind of a difference how those play. Yeah. So what are your overall thoughts then on S&V as your number three?
I enjoy it. It has some of my favorite minions and characters. I love Savant. I think it's a really interesting and fun character. I love going through Savant statements, even when I'm not the Savant. I always try to find the Savant and just like share information, like go through their information with them. I try to be very collaborative in games because I recognize this is a team-based game. Um, yeah, and it has some of the homework roles which have been
Hmm.
assigned to me. I'm the homework person now. I like Town Crier though. Flower Girl, not so much. Um, but I think with SNV, I like it, but there's a bit of information overload, which requires evil to be extremely well coordinated, and things can go wrong very fast. For example, my second time storytelling SNV, I had a snake charmer find the demon knight 1 and a philo snake charmer find the new demon knight 2. Um, the game made it 4 days, so
There you go.
it's yeah, but you get really wacky things in SNV that can unbalance the game. But it's still a good script that I enjoy from time to time. It's a sometimes food for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. I regularly describe it as especially if you compare it with a Trouble Brewing, which Trouble Brewing being a always consistently just high experience. I describe S&V as higher highs, but also lower lows.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, my most fun games of Sex and Violence are better than my most fun games of Trouble Brewing. But the worst games, and I say worse in a relative term. Like the worst games of Trouble Brewing are usually just still really incredible.
yeah,
S&V maybe not quite as much.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been in those S&V games where the town crier information points towards a good minion, and then the dreamer info does, and then the seamstress info does, and the clockmaker info does, and you're just like, okay, well, there's not really much I can do about this.
Yeah, I remember an SNV game where we there was a Fangu jump night 2 and we killed the new demon day 2, but there were evil twins and town wasn't convinced that the new demon was executed, so it took us 4 or 5 days to get to the twins, and it just dragged.
Classic.
Yeah.
And speaking of SV2, it is the script that introduces Madness with Mutant and Sarah Novus. Sarah Novus and Mutant are both on this script, for example. So, how do you feel about Madness in this
I
game?
love Madness. I love being the mutant. I get to do whatever I want.
Yeah, it's and I always describe SMV2 as it's a script full of information. If you're a mutant, you're, I presume, going to be bluffing a townsfolk. If the Sarah Nova chooses you to be mad at something, most of the time it's going to be townsfolk. And madness is misinformation. It's kind of weird that if you're going around telling people you're the town crier, but I don't have any town crier information. Town crier might be
Yeah.
not a great example because that's pretty easy, but like, um, you're mad as the artist on day 4, but you haven't used it yet. That might be a little weird. Or
Yeah.
uh, my so the game I played yesterday where I was a demon, my Sarah Novus early in the game asked me, he's like, oh hey, if on day 4 or 5, do you mind if I make you mad as a savant? I was like, He's like, well, I kind of want it to be purposeful that like you're kind of struggling to, like it's obvious you're mad, you're trying to come out. It's like, okay, for sure. I did it, and that happened. Sure enough, I struggled to come up with I had like that day's salon info, and I was like, I did write down my other info, which would have been true if I don't take notes anymore, or at least not
Hmm.
like comprehensive notes. Um, so Ed did say he would have executed me because I had a Scarlet Woman, except our Scarlet Woman
Um,
was on the block. So anyway, yeah, I love Madness. And of course, you have other character Pixies on this script. Pixie's one of my favorites too.
I love Pixie so much.
It's so good.
Uh,
Oh yeah,
I've
good.
like the first script I wrote. I've only written two, but the first script I wrote, Walter Luxray had reached out to me and asked if I'd written one before, and I said no. And he said, "Well, if you need help, let me know." And so he helped me write a script, and he asked me like, what I first wanted to add to the script, and I said Pixie, because I loved the idea of a Joyce Pixie, and that's one of my favorite interactions in Blood on the Clock Tower.
Yeah, I have this little script that a few people's heard of called Extension Cord, and Pixie can have a lot of fun interactions there with that. It's really hard sometimes to know what to do with the Droids and Pixie because I've not made the mistake before. Dreamer is a similar space, but yeah, like, do you do a demon bluff? And if so, that can backfire, or do you just show something random that isn't in play? Um, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. Spy is another interesting interaction with Pixie because um, I tried to do this thing once before where, and I don't know if I like this or not, or if it was just a bad example of it, but there was a soldier in the game, but I registered the spy as a soldier. So the
Mm.
Pixie got true information, but the token was on the spy. So the it was meant to be that if the actual soldier died, the Pixie wouldn't get the ability, but if the spy died, it would. So I mean, I don't remember exactly how it turned out. I just remembered it was weird, and it created some confusion in my head as what I should be doing to the mathematician. But anyway, point is, I agree with you. Pixie's fun, and Droids and Pixies fun as well.
Yeah.
Thinking about some more like experimental kind of characters, and of course, there's a few in this script. This script is actually relatively tame-ish, but I'm if I think about what's the most the craziest characters are, I'm thinking like Wizard and Atheist. So how do you feel about those two characters that have like a lot of storyteller control behind them?
I like them. I got a bit wizarded out after, like, a week after the Wizard was released.
Makes
I
sense.
played it a bit before, and everyone was running Wizard games. And I think at this point I've played 30 to 40 Wizard games.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've played a lot of Wizard games. I love the Wizard, but, and this is a big but, I would only play it with certain storytellers and certain groups
Hmm.
because of how storyteller dependent it is. I want to feel like I can trust the storyteller um, with how they manage the wish. Um, and I've had almost, like, yeah, most of my experiences have been positive. I've had a lot of fun
Cool.
with the wizard. I think I've only drawn it once, and I became the good wizard once in a game where the evil wizard wished for duplicates. Um, Emma was storytelling that game, and started playing songs. One of which was just the two of us to for the wizard clue. My evil wizard wish was that a random player, and I had picked three, would gain the Nodashi's ability, poisoning her two townsfolk neighbors. It was a silly game, and the storyteller did something really silly where, well, I'm not going to say it because we swore me to secrecy, but
Oh
it
no.
was a really, really fun game.
Okay.
Uh, um, yeah, I like the wizard. It's fun.
What's your
Uh,
favorite wizard wish you've seen so far?
oh, my favorite wizard wish. This happened on stream. I think the demon. I can't remember who the demon was, but the demon type was Pukka, and Austin was in that game. I was the klutz. Austin was my neighbor, and Austin was the marionette, but did not know he was the marionette for the majority of the game. And the wizard, and it was Gambling or Tamar, wished that the storyteller Patters would each day announce to town that Austin was the demon. um, the cost of that wizard wish was that players who were mad that Austin was good would come back to life. It was a very silly, fun game. Um, Austin didn't know again that he was the marionette. I was executed one day, the day I was pucka poisoned, I klutz picked Austin. Nothing happened. The game continued. I later came back to life, died, woke up to a final three, klutz picked Austin again, and we lost.
Yeah.
But it was a
Amazing.
very memorable game. And I think all in all, my favorite wizard wishes are disruptive ones rather than ones that have a mechanical impact to the game.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah. Then how about Atheist? How do you feel about that one?
I enjoy Atheist. Again, storyteller dependent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's both both Atheist and Wizard are sometimes food for me. But I enjoy them. I don't think there's any character I really avoid in Blood on the Clocktower. I'm typically open to playing anything.
Yeah. I always love to hear that. Yeah, and obviously, some people just have characters they prefer to avoid, and nothing wrong with that, or they just flat out don't like it. I always think that Clock Tower is a game. It's what you make of it. Butler is a good example. Like it's why I don't understand the hate for the Butler. I was like, you can have fun with the Butler. I mean, I don't know. That's just me. Others are different, of course, but yeah. All right, one final question before we head out here. So, looking at the script and the characters that are on it, which of these characters would you like to be in real life?
Oh, in real life.
Mm-hmm. Always love the open-ended nature of this question.
I know. Uh, Definitely not damsel. We'll go with dreamer.
Dreamer, all right. Yeah. Well, how do you interpret that being a dreamer? I guess in this context.
I I interpret it as being able to peer into people's thoughts and get a sense of what they are and what they might not be.
I like it.
um,
Yeah.
it would just be a really cool real life ability. People kind of joke about me being a mind reader anyway. I'm terrible at it. I cannot read people's minds, but it would be a really cool ability to have.
Yeah, I can't disagree. All right. Well, Noor, thank you very much for joining us this week.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week with another episode of Hard Claim.